Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Centric. This video show we're talking about TV shows that are crime dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about The Woman in the Wall, Season 1, Episode 3. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So the opening of this episode revolves around Clement's funeral. At first it was kind of, the wake and then the actual funeral itself, but... Well, no, because they don't. No, I was about to say the whole thing is the whole wake process. But I thought it was so interesting. Lorna standing over Clement's body and removes the rosary. It makes once again not a line of dialogue from her, just her thinking back to her and Clemens when they were younger, and just in that moment, just silently taking the rosary out of her hand and throwing it away because it's like, yeah, Clemens wouldn't want that. No, like after everything they've been through, like they would not want that. I just thought that was so interesting because even without her brother David saying anything, you can tell Lorna kind of feels a little guilty because it's like, before all this, what happened, I said everything I said at that meeting last episode, and Clemens was going to tell me everything, and maybe I ended up, my attempt to get my daughter back, my child back, made me kind of push her too far, and she killed herself, And even at one point, David's like, this is your fault. And it's that thing of she wants answers. She's desperate for answers because that's all she has to cling on to because she feels like she doubly betrayed Clemens. What happened years ago, which wasn't her fault. She was forced in this situation by, Sister Eileen. And it's like, that guilt is there. Now you're feeling extra guilty, but it's like, for you, after everything that's happened, you're a step closer potentially to finding your child because Clement had answers and you don't know what that is, and so you're hoping to get information out of David, but he won't give you anything. And just, she's spiraling. Obviously, she's seeing all these missing person posters for Aoife, which I'm like, are those real? I mean, it seemed like they were real. It doesn't seem like those are fake. It looked like those were real, and she's seeing Aoife everywhere. Obviously, Akandi's like following her, even though Messi was like, do not do this. We could talk to her any other day, just not today because everyone's grieving. This is a sad situation, but Akandi can't let this go. He wants to make it seem like, would you be this dogged about your pursuit if you didn't have a direct correlation and connection to this case? Because of Father Percy, but also you grew up in a Magdalene baby home. That's where you were born at, and he tried to say, like, once again, he keeps prefacing it was nothing like what these women went through, because Messi's the one that's like, dude, you keep ignoring the fact is that you have a personal stake, and it's not only the Father Percy of it all, but also this being born in a Magdalene baby home. But then there's also like the nightmare he keeps having where he's like running, and it looks like it's supposed to be Father Percy chasing him, which I'm like, once again, is this that priest thing of he did some inappropriate, are we dealing with like some molestation type of stuff? It's what I'm wondering. Like, why are you having that nightmare? It feels like that might be the direction they're going. I don't know. It might steep into something deeper, or maybe he's suppressing a lot of stuff that might have happened at that baby home. Maybe he saw, but it was so traumatic, and he went through something so traumatic back then that it's like buried in his subconscious, and all of this is coming to the forefront. Because maybe that's also another reason why he wants to like immediately solve this case, because it's unearthing a lot of stuff he doesn't want to deal with either. So he might be more in the same. I don't want to equate trauma. I'm not trying to. Everyone's trauma is their own. Like, no one. It's like, oh, your trauma's worse than yours. Like, everyone's trauma is their own. And so I don't want to try and equate who's got it worse or anything like that. It's not equatable. But I don't want to, like, I'm not trying to. But, like, maybe there's a little bit of overlap of, yeah, these women are having to face their trauma, and you're kind of in the same boat in a lot of capacity. I'm just saying there's some Venn diagram, like, crossover in some capacity. It's kind of also sad, too, that where Amy and Lorna currently stand, because Amy... Well, because it was during that little gathering where, the ladies who are connected to the Magdalene laundries ended up the guy that's supposed to be kind of leading the charge and talking to some lawyers and stuff like that to get to get the church and all those people involved to admit what happened. But the problem is, it's like there's not enough evidence, and obviously, like, Amy's not in a good headspace, probably hasn't been for a while, and it's just... all of this for her, it's like at least Clemens decided to go out on her own. Can we respect that choice? And Lorna's trying to get her to calm down, but Amy's like, at the end of the day, like, no one did anything. Me and Lorna, we're the only ones who can fully understand what Clemens went through because we were there at the Magdalene Laundry and Baby Home. Like, we know first and foremost that, and it's like, it's supposed to be a thing of we're supposed to be united, but Lorna's just kind of like, this is not the time, which is kind of interesting that the person who is a little off a rocker is telling the other person who's a little off their rocker to calm down, don't like make a scene. Like, the fact is David's here grieving his sister, we can't do this now, I made that mistake, I'm not trying to make that again. And it just ends up pushing these two apart, like when they should be together on this. It's just, I think Lorna doesn't want Amy dragging her into this, saying like, was it really just, a heart attack? Like, did she, like, she unalived herself and it's just, she ended up, it's just a complex of emotions. I mean, to be fair, like, Amy did a couple lines of coke. Lorna did one line as well herself, trying to make sure that she's able to stay awake because she doesn't want to go to sleep. But when it's all said and done, Amy kind of turns on her. It's like, I was trying to protect Lorna. I don't know why I was trying to do that. Why? Like, she's not going to be there for me, so why should I be there for her? And tells Akandi that, yeah, she was there. I saw her burn the car. It's like, well, you saw her go down the street. I don't think you saw her burn the car per se. She was in the area, but you never saw her actually burn the car from where you were at. I don't think so, but, you can put two and two together, but no one physically saw her do it. You saw her heading in the direction, so, which is also the same thing for Akandi. It's like, he's certain that's Lorna on the video, but you can't tell. But because of Dara's description of the woman that visited him, Grace, the Joan of Arc hair and stuff like that, plus the woman having already interacted with Lorna, knowing she's connected to all of this, he's certain it's her, but he just doesn't want to let this go. Even though he doesn't have, I had said it last episode, he's certain it's Lorna, but he doesn't have actual proof because you can't make it out, and you can't make out her face in the video. But what I thought was interesting too is last episode? I believe it was last episode. They visited that guy that pointed at Amy, saying that she was most likely the culprit or whatever, or he saw her, and that same dude and Amy, like, Akandi saw them outside arguing to each other, and you're like, what was that about? Because now part of me is wondering, like, does Amy have a bigger role in this whole situation than you kind of initially gave her credit for? Like, maybe she, she also made it perfectly clear. She was like, I want Father Percy to die, and I'd want him to suffer for it, yada, 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 right? So, I don't know what that's about. Like, why would he point the finger at her? Like, they have some history, and I'm just not curious what, and because I always saw was them arguing on, like, the surveillance footage, but we don't know what it actually was about. And it's just like, yeah, that is a thread we set up last episode we still have not gotten a resolution to. So it feels like that might be a thread that kind of gets built out and pulled out more over the course of the remaining episodes or something. Because it feels like there's something there. Like, why would he throw Amy under the bus the moment he got a chance? And it seems like even Massey kind of seemed like he knew that there's beef between them, but we just don't know what that's about. But because how Lorna handled the whole Amy situation, I think it made David kind of look back on the way he was treating Lorna. He's like, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said what I said. It wasn't your fault. And he ends up revealing to Lorna the picture of the little girls. It's like, oh, what? That's not Clemens as a little girl. That's her daughter. And it's like, wait, what? It's like, yes, that woman, Aoife, gave her this photo. So it's like, if her daughter's out there and alive, then maybe your daughter is too, which gives Lorna the biggest bit of hope she's gotten in forever. It's like, this is the closest she's ever gotten to an answer of, like, my child's potentially still out there. So I think it was after the situation with Michael when she got brought in by Akandi and Massey and they were, like, questioning her. I mean, hell, that hot sauce thing, because it was his suggestion, like, yeah, that's what they do in the army to keep you awake. You'd put hot sauce in your eyes, it'd keep you from going to sleep. Which I won't lie to you, the moment she like tilted the hot sauce back before it even hit her eye, my eyes started watering. I think I have like extremely sensitive eyes, because seeing that made my eyes water. Once again, hot sauce hadn't even hit her eye yet. It's just the process of her pouring it into her eye hadn't even hit her eye yet, and my eyes started watering. I was like, oh boy, she just ugh. I wonder, is that why her eyes started bleeding later on? I mean, maybe it's a combination of like the stress on her eyes from not sleeping, plus the hot sauce, because she only did it in one eye. So, but all of a sudden her eyes just started bleeding. You're like, I guess that combined with like the stress, it's just like, I don't know what would cause that. Which you're almost like, considering this all kind of ties to religion too, that seems a little like, that's interesting. Bleeding from your eyes, that's kind of ugh. So I'm like I said, I assume it's just like the stress of everything that she's kind of going through caused that. Because like I said, she only did it in one eye with the hot sauce, at least that we saw, and like both of her eyes were bleeding. Because Akandi's really, really pushing this. He's like, I know you know something. You say you didn't know Father Percy. Other people have admitted that Father Percy was at the Magdalene Laundry, so I know you're lying to me. Do you actually know Aoife? Like, she's going missing. Dara's going to go to prison for something he potentially didn't do. Like, we still unclear about the whole Father Percy of it all, and Dara and Aoife's involvement in his murder or whatnot. We did get that little flashback with him and a young Akandi, being like he was fighting some kids because they called him adopted. He was like, Percy was like, you are adopted. The fact is, but you were chosen or whatever. And I'm just like, once again, it's like this man meant something to you, but like I said, I don't know if there's some underlying trauma associated with him that you haven't faced yet or what. But we also kind of got Massey's perspective on like why he's so protective of these women, why especially Lorna. Like, it's like, yeah, she sleepwalks, she's a little crazy, but it's like he's protective. It's like, oh yeah, like these women are not as fragile. Like, yeah, they've been through something terrible, but that doesn't mean they're incapable of doing something terrible themselves. And the reason why Massey's so protective of them is like, he was like, I was like a young police guard at that time when all that was going down. He was like, every family feared their child getting pregnant outside of marriage because it would lead to the Magdalene Laundry situation. So it's like, once again, it's that conversation that was brought up like last episode or whatever of everyone knows. It was a well-known thing, just no one did anything about it. It's like, could you not? I guess maybe it's such an established institution, there was nothing you could do about it. Because now it makes you go, is that why so many people turned a blind eye? Because so many people were worried, like, if I get involved, maybe it's going to lead to like some excommunication type of situation. Will they make it up an excuse or situation to drag your own child into it? Like, even, you're trying to protect your family and yourself, so it's like, right, let me turn away from any other family's grievances or issues because the Magdalene Laundries just had that much of a foothold in the community, and just they had the not the official backing of the church, but I don't know if that's where a lot of that fear came from. But it's like, the way Massey talked about it, like, everyone lived in fear of, like, I don't want my child to ever end up in a situation where the Magdalene Laundry or Baby Home could come to them for whatever reason. The fact is that fear was there, but no one did anything about it, just accepted it and turned a blind eye to it, I think that's why Massey's just like, right, like, it was just kind of this unspoken rule. You just don't do anything about it. You turn the other cheek, not other cheek, but you just turn away, and there's this guilt about that. And for him, it's like, he wanted Lorna and someone like Clemens to live a happy life, and look what happened to Clemens. It's just like, that's why he's like scared. I think he's afraid. He recognizes that Lorna's fragile. She's always has been, been a little off, sleepwalking and stuff. And he just doesn't want to push her over to the edge to the point that she ends up doing what Clemens did. I think that's his biggest concern and fear. That's why he's kind of tiptoeing around this. Once again, it's just like everyone's got their own guilt in some shape or form about this circumstance. Well, I think it's so interesting going back, because I touched on it a little bit, but the scene where Michael was watching Lorna, which she was like, can you watch me sleep? He's like, isn't that bit creepy? She's like, no, it's fine if I'm asking you to do it. And he did, but he fell asleep at one point in time, and she ended up sleepwalking. She pulled out some scissors and started cutting up the photo of Clement's child. Now the question then becomes like, well, why did you do that? Is that your subconscious being upset because it's like, oh, Clemens found out about her child? But that's the thing. She found out about her child, but she still killed herself. That's the thing of like, now you're like, conspiracy theory hat comes on and you're like, did Clemens actually kill herself? Did she get killed? Was it just because so much was taken from you, all of this resurfacing? Because she wanted to tell Lorna everything, so why would she do that? But maybe it was just too much. Because my theory at the time was maybe we find out that Lorna's child is still alive, but Clemens wasn't, and that was just so much for her to handle that she ended up killing. That's what I thought at the time. I don't know what to fully think now. But it's like, did Lorna do that out of resentment? Because it's like, oh, Clement's child has been found, but what about mine? What about mine? Like, it's her subconscious manifesting, like, some of the deep-seated stuff that she has, or maybe seeing them in a dress and just maybe it triggered something about the Magdalene. I mean, it might just be a larger trigger about the Magdalene baby home and stuff like that, you know? Then later on, she ran into what seemed to be Aoife's daughter, because she's asking her questions, and it's just like, Lorna's not, obviously, she's like, well, I killed your mom and stuffed her in the wall, and I'm like, I don't know, obviously I can't say that, so she's staying close to Aoife's daughter, because it's like, right, Aoife knew something about my child because she brought something to Clemens, and she potentially died before she could give that information to me, so where is that information? Did she store it somewhere? And Aoife's daughter notices the marks on Lorna's arm, and it's like, I thought it was from her scratching, just like her neck, but it was like, no, it was her scratching something, like she was having a reaction to something, and it's a very specific type of flower. It's from the place her and Michael went to last episode, and she remembers Aoife had that on her arms as well, so it's like, okay, so Aoife was there, so this is potentially the place Aoife was storing everything. So they go back, and then partway through it, Aoife's daughter's like, oh, I got a call. Oh, it's just my dad checking up on me. He's in Dublin. And in that moment, Lorna turned, I was like, yep, you messed up. Because I'm like, you're pretending to be his daughter. Well, I guess it's like you wouldn't know that. I mean, they wouldn't make a public thing out of having Dara arrested. But that's the thing of like, we know that he's in jail. I want to say it might have been, it was the scene before this we actually saw Akandi talk to him. So I'm like, how, like, you didn't do your due diligence to not, I guess, like, why would you know that he's not here? Like, you just haphazardly deciding to play this role as Aoife's daughter? Like, you know, you think you'd be more prepared, but in that moment, Lorna's like, I don't know who you are and I can't trust you, so yeah, let's search separately. And she ends up finding Aoife's files, hides them away from the woman, and then takes off, leaving her behind. I was like, yeah. Because it's like, and she was even like, yeah, I don't know anyone here. Do you mind if I stay? Like, you don't know this lady. Why would you be wanting to stay at her place? You know, it's like, that's coming off a little wild. But maybe she figured, hey, you'd be more inclined to do it because maybe we could work together. Like, but what makes, outside of that, like, what would make you think Lorna would be okay with it? Maybe it's like, you know, her mental state that you're like, oh, I know I can take advantage of this. Like, Lorna's going to want to keep me close because I'm the closest thing to some potential answer she'll get about what my quote-unquote mother is, what information she had and what she's connected to. But yeah, Lorna just left her behind. Because I believe this ties into the group that Dara was talking about, the one that he was saying Aoife was scared of. They're the, was it Church of the Sacred... Oh God, I'm blanking on her name. It's some other group, but we ended up finding out this group is actually an adoption agency. So you're like, okay, so they worked in conjunction with the Sisters of like Seven Joys or whatever, the Magdalene laundry/baby home. So I was like, okay, so you strip the babies from like quote-unquote unfit mothers, you try to justify it, yada yada yada, you give the babies over to this adoption agency which adopts the babies out, and like, I mean, there's a whole processing fee for like setting up I mean, you obviously, like, you have to pay for like adoptions and stuff like that. So were they probably getting kickback? Like they said, like they weren't a legitimate adoption agency, or maybe they were, but they like wanted to make some side hustle money. But I mean, because like the report that the papers that Akandi were reading, it's like, oh, they're being accoladed for like, oh my God, they're putting so many great children into these good Catholic homes. So it's like, right, they were taking children from people, pretending the children were dead, and then like basically setting up this whole, like, makes you wonder, were they ever a real adoption? Well, at one point in time, it seemed like they were a real adoption agency, but what happens is, upon looking further, like Akandi, Messi, and the other officer look into it deeper, but the place shut down in '79. But it's like, no, like, because Lorna was there at the baby home in like the '80s, and we know Aoife was there like '84. So it's like, what's the connection there? But it's like, the place might have been officially shut down, but unofficially it stayed open, and it might have been like, they're like, maybe everyone got a little piece of that side hustle, like Sister Eileen and the others that were working there. Because that makes me wonder, like, this adoption agency group, is that who the fake Aoife's daughter was a part of? Or, because let's not forget, Akandi and Messi went to go see Sister Eileen last episode, so not less they've got some secret people like dealing with some stuff. So not less that was someone who still works for the church. I mean, it could be one and the same. Like, that agency place could still have been like, they're shuffling everything, trying to keep it hidden, but that place probably definitely stayed open a lot longer than the official reports say. But circling back to Lorna, the files that she got from Aoife's files, she ends up going through them and she finds her own. And it turns out she did have a daughter. The daughter's name was Agnes, but she died after like shivering for 2 days. And so it's like, but is that real? Was that a fake death certificate? Is that what Aoife was going to show you? Like, okay, this is what they say officially. Because they already believed that, like, they were already saying that some of the children were dead regardless. But maybe they said stuff without ever having official paper. I mean, Aoife's not alive to potentially give her answers, you know? So it's unclear what that all means and whether or not that's real or not. But, because it ties into Akandi, who talked to the taxi driver, because apparently it's not even just a taxi company, it's only one taxi car, and it's by one dude who drinks, which Massey's like, yeah, let's not worry about that too much. But I love the moment Akandi came to him, he was like, whoa, are you arresting me? He's like, I'm not arresting you. He's like, oh, okay. But he's the one that told him, like, hey, I dropped off Aoife and Lorna back at Lorna's place. So what does Akandi do? He breaks into Lorna's place. I was like, are you going to notice the wall being... I mean, I guess you don't immediately jump to the assumption of, oh my God, there's a hidden body back there. Because in his mind, he doesn't think Aoife's dead. Because we find out later on what his theory is. I love that he's about to go upstairs. I'm like, well, we know Lorna's about to come home. Like, did he lock the door back? Because I don't even remember. It didn't even sound like she unlocked the door. It sounded like the door, he never locked it back, because just assumed he had all the time in the world, I guess. But I guess he just wasn't thinking about that. But he ends up going upstairs, and while he's partway upstairs, she opens the door, they lock eyes, and then she's like, you want some tea? He's like, what? She's like, do you want some tea? I'm about to make some. It's just like, she just rolls with the punches. It's just everything just is hitting her, and she just kind of a little on autopilot, just kind of going through the flow, going through the motions of things. But turns out Akandi's perspective is he believes Aoife killed Percy, took his car, ran away with it, came to Lorna looking for her help in all of this, and that basically Lorna was harboring her. That's his theory. So that goes back to what I was about to say, where it's like, you wouldn't jump to the assumption that, oh yeah, someone's dead and been put inside of a wall. It's interesting, but like I said, that's not even where his mind went, because he doesn't think Aoife's dead. He thinks she's somewhere, because he thinks Lorna's her accomplice. It's like, right, she asked you for help, so you decided to burn Percy's car, because it's like, right, you've lied to me over and over again. You knew Father Percy and you said you didn't. You burned his car and you did. And it's like, right, you said that Aoife took your child, and that was a lie. It's like, no, here's something official, and it was signed by Aoife herself. It's like, my baby died shivering and if I'd done more, if I fought more. It makes you wonder. So that means probably I don't know if I'm curious in that scene where Lorna and Clemens went to go see their babies. Was her baby already gone? Like, because the baby was shivering for 2 days, but it never specifically. You'd have to look at the dates and stuff, but I was wondering. I was almost thinking it meant that the moment Lorna like had her baby taken from her baby died pretty soon afterwards. So I'd wondered, like, in that scene with Clemens when they were younger, going to their babies, did they was her baby even there, or was her baby there but her? Because it makes me wonder, is that why Eileen said what she said, even more, being like, oh, not even knowing which one's yours, because probably by then her baby had already died. They didn't want to tell her. Like, maybe there's an element of that. Maybe that's an extra layer of why Eileen was cruel in that moment. Cruel to be cruel, but also just to cover your own ass, because you don't want to admit the fact is that her baby had died already. Once again, it just depends on the time frame and stuff. But for Akandi, he feels like such an asshole because he was so certain, like, oh, wow, like, this is kind of what Massey was like warning me about, like, jumping, going for the jugular with these women who are in vulnerable places. I'm not being sympathetic as much as I should be in the situation. But then Lorna starts hearing pounding and pounding. She's thinking it's coming from the wall. She's spiraling. Like, the scene transitions to her in this room covered, like, with that piece of the wall where Aoife's body is. It's just like circling her, and she's like, all right, I killed her, and I put her in a wall. I'm gonna show you. And I was like, the body's not gonna be there, is it? And lo and behold, it's not. Wow. And she was about ready to confess, not about ready, she straight up confessed to murder, but it's like Aoife's body's going, so you're like, okay. So, are we going full conspiracy mode here, saying like, okay, the people that are trying to get close to her, the person pretending to be Aoife's daughter, like the group she's a part of, like I said, whether that's some remnants of like the agency that Aoife was scared of, maybe they're folded into maybe some of those people are folded into the church and working on their Eileen now, who knows? But either they stole the body and then covered that back up, but it's like, why wouldn't they want Lorna to take the fall for that if that's the case? But now it's like, so that's a possibility, conspiracy mode, but that's where I'm like, I don't fully believe that. Still could be the case. Or Lorna lost her mind, and it's like, so she did interact with Aoife, but if she didn't kill Aoife, where is Aoife now? Like, did in one of her states, did she move Aoife's body and then repaint the place? So did, like, she move the body, so it maybe she actually, I still don't think she killed Aoife, I think, but it's like, was Aoife's body really there when she first got home in episode 1? Or was it a thing of, no, like, that's just my delusion? Because her seeing Aoife the entire episode was that her subconscious trying to tell her, like, you're feeling guilty about this, but you didn't do it. That wasn't real. That was all in your head. Is that what that was trying to tell her? Or, like I said, did, like, another part of, like, did her sleepwalking self move the body already and then recover the whole thing? It'd be a lot wetter, like, it would be a lot fresher. It looks like that looks old, so Aoife never died, or at least Lorna had nothing to do with it, but maybe Lorna witnessed her getting murdered, and that's like, it happened to her subconsciously while she was sleepwalking or whatever. So maybe that trauma is there, and she thought she saw Aoife's body, and I put it in the wall. Like, maybe there's some deep-seated trauma. I don't know what to fully make of that. That's kind of a hell of a stinger to lead an episode off on, but I'm starting. There's so many possibilities with that. We'll ultimately have to wait to see where the next episode takes us with all of this. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.